Hey guys, I'm backstage at NRB with my buddy Luke. Luke, you guys are running the show back here, so
Yeah,
give me a taste of what your team's doing for NRB.
Yeah, so my role here at NRB is basically to make sure that the right thing hits the right screen at the right time. So I work with a myriad of different people, both the NRB convention people as well as some of the sponsors and speakers. And we just make sure that all the assets and video content comes into play, which can be a lot because you're kind of herding cats at times.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's a great team. One of the things I like about this show is that it really is family back here. I mean, all of the crew, we've worked together for 10 plus years. Dan Castro, the producer, lighting, video, audio, they've all been pretty much the same crews for the last 10 years.
So we did a video last year, a couple years ago, on how you organize all the assets.
Yeah.
Give me a taste of the system in which all the assets work within.
Yeah, so we basically create this asset ID system, which means that every single piece of media that comes in, we tag with a certain asset ID. And it's easy, I don't know how many video editors are watching this, but it's easy when you have like final V2B, take
Use this
3.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so for us, every time you send a new video in, hey, we just updated this, that gets a new asset ID. So instead of being V02, we're now at V32. And it allows our team to have very good clarity in, hey, we don't need to be playing that one because it's now time to play V32, which actually stands for video 32, not version 32. Right?
Got it. So talking to church media people that are working in churches on Sunday, how does that translate to church world? So how can I take my pastor, my communications team's assets and use that system?
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as saying, okay, so if your pastor is going to create a series of slides, name them some sort of naming convention that is basically exponential. Don't name them version 1, version 2. Name it like PPT-01, PPT-02, which for us would stand for slides because that's a PowerPoint deck in some capacity. And that way, when your pastor last minute comes in and wants to make a change, it's no longer PPT-02, it's PPT-03, which gives everyone clarity when you see it on a Dropbox or a Drive or whatever. This is the most up-to-date version. And as long as that system is consistent, it works in every environment because you know what you're missing.
Got it. Okay, so this is one of the biggest shows in the Christian community, largest gathering of Christian communicators in the world. So as it translates to churches, do you have a deadline of you have to get your assets in by this date? Or how do you handle, one, is there a deadline? And two, how do you handle last minute? So here's how it relates to church world. My pastor's going to walk in on Sunday morning, hand me something last minute. How do you guys handle that here? And how can that relate to church world? Does that make sense?
Yeah, such a great question because my whole team's vision and what I try and help lead our team into is that we need to be ready for everything last minute. And the better homework and preparation you guys can do up front, the better you can take something last minute and it not throw your whole team for a loop.
Right.
Now, there is still a deadline, and there is still a place where it's important to say, hey, we need your stuff by this date, or else we can't guarantee it's going to work as well as it should, or we haven't had a chance to test it or prepare it or rehearse with it, whatever. And we really tell people, like, at least make sure you have a sample or a test or a placeholder.
Right.
But here's the thing. I think that a great friend of mine said this once, and it really impacted me, but the word no is pretty unspiritual, in my opinion. And he said that, and I just have sort of adopted that. And so I think it's so healthy, and I think that the way to prove that production and video and all that sort of stuff is a habit, not a hobby, is to be someone who's ready for last minute changes. Be able to take that slide last minute and be able to insert it, be able to take care of that. And how do you get to that? You, as best as you can, you rehearse for that sort of stuff.
Right. So you plan. So how do you make templates, placeholders? How do you prepare? How would I prepare a volunteer team for that last minute change?
Well, I think it's as easy as sort of saying, hey, are you in a place where if you were given something last minute, you could load it and go?
Right.
If someone's not trained or prepared or confident enough, then that's not going to happen. And so we've got to make sure confidence is key, because when the pastor comes and they're like, oh, I don't know how to do that, now he's going to be thrown off or she's going to be thrown off, and your communicator on stage has no confidence in the production team, and that's when tension starts to arise.
Right.
But think about it this way, when your pastor gets on stage, it's ultimately up to the pastor and the tech person. Those are the two people running in that moment. And so there has to be this bond, there has to be this trust. And I think it's the tech person's, the tech team's role to give the communicator that confidence. Hey, I've got this. I'm going to nail your slides. You don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, and I think from a leader perspective, that is, how can I train my team on the front end, do training sessions, whatever that looks like during the week or monthly, whatever that looks like, to make sure that they're not just executing slides. They know more than that.
Yeah.
They know how to import, export, move things around, load a template, create a template, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and you want to speak to that at all?
Well, and I think standards are also important. So templates are really big, but sometimes in the world we live in, templates, so here's a perfect example. We do lower thirds here. So we'll have cameras and IMAG, and we'll do a lower third anytime someone speaks. Well, the speaker may change last minute. So my thing that's really big on our team is it in a editable form so that on the fly someone could change out a name, change out a title, and we're all smooth.
So you're not really using animated. You're going to lean towards still, where I can type in the name in ProPresenter.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you can still do some animation in Pro. You can build a series of slides. We aren't here, but you're right. I actually feel like simple is better in certain instances where flexibility needs to be important. And there comes a point where you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
I mean, in a show like this, where it's committee-based and things change and board members may swap out of who's getting on stage next or whatever to present an award or present a prayer or do an offering, we don't have speaker bumpers and beautiful things that fly across our 100-foot wide screen here, mainly because that's a baked element and it actually reduces our flexibility.
Right.
And so my biggest encouragement to those listening would be, if you are in an environment where flexibility has to triumph your sort of production value, you've got to understand the priority level of that.
Right.
Whereas, other events we've done, production value triumphs that, which means that weeks out, things are locked in and no one can change. And there takes a lot of work to get to that state.
Right. Got it. All right. So as we leave each other today, give me a taste of SALT. How can people sign up? How can people go? We're talking to a lot of church media guys from churches that would want to come to that community. So tell me when it is and how I can get signed up.
Yeah, so SALT this whole year, it's really like the creative church conference. It's for all those who serve behind the scenes, in communications, in church tech, production, all that, worship. And really, I think, you and I've talked a lot about this, but this idea of like those of us who serve behind the scenes in creative and tech and communicative sort of arts in the church, is what we do really make a difference in our community, in our neighborhoods? How do we leverage the gifts that God's given us? And one of the things that I'm so excited about SALT this year is that our whole theme centers around this idea of such a time as this. Yeah. We're going to study the life of Esther, how she leveraged all of her gifts and all of her influence to make the most for the people God had called her to. And I think the same thing is happening right now in this culture. We live in a time period, we live in a day and age, and you know this, that creativity is consumed and craved and created at a rate like no other. Yeah. I mean, how many Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus that just was announced, Disney streaming service. I mean, content is just everywhere, which means that the opportunity is prime for the church to be the epicenter of creativity and for the church to really be this export of great story to lead people to Jesus. Yeah. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So that's what SALT 19 is all about.
How can I sign up?
You can go to salt19.com. Dates are October 9th through 11th. We'll be in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, dude.
Hey, thanks, Carl.